Esther Arunga, from media royalty to a tabloid tragedy, all because she just wanted to serve God and be free.
For tonight's edition of KTN Weekend Prime, I'm Esther Arunga. Thank you for watching and good night.
Kenya, a land of breathtaking landscapes, Olympic runners, and a media scene graced by queens like Yvonne Okwara, Janet Mbugua, and Victoria Rubadiri. But before they were sipping tea on morning shows, there was the media goddess.
Because in my head, she was a little goddess.
Correct.
Like, you don't just approach.
No.
How dare you?
How dare you?
You must have heard of Esther Arunga. She wasn't just beautiful. No, this woman was the human version of a velvet-wrapped sunset. So stunning. Even CNN's Larry Madao needed a warm-up lap before saying hello while she was interning at The Nation.
It took me a week of getting hired. It took me a whole week before I gathered courage to go and speak to Esther Arunga.
Spoiler, she was nice, like dangerously nice. Esther ruled the prime time news at KTN like a benevolent empress then. Boom, breaking news. Ex-news anchor charged for her son's murder, facing over 25 years of time in prison. Husband involved. Kenya collectively shocked on their child. Literally, how? Why? And who the hell is Quincy Timberlake? Her husband at the time, who was super sub to Esther by Wilson Malaba. Let's rewind. Born into a strict Seventh-day Adventist home, Esther Arunga was raised on discipline, modesty, and an intolerance for hipsters. Not the people, the pants. Her dad, Dr. Robert Arunga, was basically the big boss of university councils and the politrix married to the mom, Petroline Arunga. So naturally, when Esther aced her KCP, she got shipped off to Australia for law school, as one does. Law degree, overseas, check. Kenyan School of Law, check. Legal career, quite no. Instead, she ended up on radio at the Capital FM, slinging rock music on Saturday mornings like Post Malone, just on the journal part of it. That's when she met a peculiar pastor, Joseph Helen, who was also a saxophonist, preacher, and founder of the Finger of God Church, well known as the Elite House Church for people who love Jesus and social drinking. It wasn't a kawaida church. He also led a prayer session show for the staff called Morning Evolutions on Wednesday at Capital FM. That's pretty much how their timelines crossed paths.
A cult is a secret organization. Our church has been meeting publicly in places that are accessible.
Fed up with the restrictive SDA rules and probably tired of not being allowed to wear lip gloss, Esther joined the church and snap. Life trajectory detour incoming. Soon, she soared to KTN stardom as a young journalist, melted hearts with her emotional anchoring that even bagged a Chaguo Latinese award. Meanwhile, a broke gospel crooner with fake Congolese demeanor, Quincy Timberlake was watching from the shadows. Married to Rose Mweni with kids, Quincy seemed thirsty. He was also likely a Diamond Platinum stan juu ya vile alikuwa anakula kwa macho. She, however, had just gotten engaged to Wilson Malaba, a CEO and nice guy who even joined her funky church to win her heart. But then the devil logged in. Quincy Timberlake, fresh off watching Tusker Project fame, spotted his old classmate Pastor Helen on TV and thought, aha, my gateway to Esther. Next thing you know, Wilson's out, Quincy in, and Esther's parents are watching their daughter spiral like an Hollywood plot gone wrong.
Limelight has been characterized with upheavals, with the three in and out of court severally. And if you thought they were through, then you've got another thought coming.
Quincy married Esther against her parents' will, derailed her career, moved her to Australia, and plot twist, they got arrested after their son died under extremely suspicious, possibly culty circumstances. Quincy is now forever the main suspect, while Esther's once shining star is now a cautionary tale in every Kenyan living room. So picture this. Quincy, a smooth-talking guy with more vibes than credentials, reconnect with the former primary school deskmate, Joseph Helen. But this wasn't a nostalgia tour, more like Quincy wanted in on Helen's church, some sort of reunion. Since they shared races back in the Kokuro Primary School glory days, Helen welcomed him with open arms. Here's the plot twist. Quincy didn't just want to join the church, he had his sights set on one of his prized jewels, Esther Arunga, the media darling and church girl who was then engaged to a church member named Wilson Malaba. Seems though like Quincy looked at the engagement and said, "Challenge accepted." Knowing Esther only took instructions from her pastor like it was the 10 Commandments on WhatsApp, Quincy knew that all he had to do was win over Helen. So what does our resident Yahoo boy do? He sells Helen the dream, promises him an Oscar nomination for jazz. Yes, a Kenyan jazz pastor going to Oscars, and Helen, Lord bless him, doesn't even look into it. That little ego boost gave Quincy the audacity to go next level. He sent a fake email pretending to be the televangelist Benny Hinn, then tells Helen, in prophetic caps lock energy, to cancel Esther's engagement to Wilson, and Helen actually does it. With Wilson out of the way, Quincy dived headfirst into Esther's DMs with the fake foreign accents and fictional business empires. He said stuff and he's linked to Tony Blair, Obama, and even claimed to be owning a hotel in the Bahamas. Basically, he's a one-man LinkedIn scam. Esther was starstruck. Next thing you know, she dumps Wilson and marries Quincy at the AG's office on the 9th of February 2010. Publicly, the two were all over each other, kissing, cuddling, acting like the perfect couple, but back home, Esther's parents were in full panic mode. They were watching their brilliant daughter quit her media job, marry a man who looked like he lived in a Wikipedia footnote, and now announcing that she wanted to run for deputy president under a brand new party called, wait for it, the Placenta Party. At this point, her parents were done. They called the cops, raided Helen's Runda home, and Esther was arrested alongside Quincy and the church gang. After 2 days in custody, she was taken into a psych mental hospital by her parents, got locked in for 5 days. Esther came out hotter than a tea kettle and sued her parents for 300 million Kenyan shillings for unlawful confinement, because in 2010, as it seems, drama was currency.
Did this in conjunction with my parents, who unfortunately I am forced to sue as well, and I will not be seeking less than 300 million shillings for unlawful detention, unlawful sedation.
But the real hit came from her father, Robert Arunga, who'd been moving in silence like the G in lasagna. The man being an ODM royalty, he decided Quincy had to go. He called in a political favor from his SDA churchmate, the immigration minister, Otieno Kajwang, and boom, Quincy gets arrested again. The official reason? They didn't know the man's nationality. Mind you, Quincy is a Luo from Homa Bay. Quincy was dragged through the system, singing the national anthem 100 times, being stripped, insulted, and everything. He even got his balls massaged. Believe so. All in an attempt to break him. Romeo, though, well referred to as Quincy, refused to tap out. Meanwhile, Esther went full nuclear. She accused her dad of wanting to pimp her out to a government minister for political gain. Keep in mind that Quincy was introduced to Esther through her passee, more like a holy pimp.
I'd like to ensure all citizens that I am legally married to Quincy Timberlake. I'm disappointed in my father for having used his connections, or rather abused his connections to corridors of power to try and intimidate my husband. I thank God that it did not work. It did not work. But I am happy about one thing, that the state has finally confirmed my husband as a fully fledged Kenyan citizen.
The media tried guessing it to be the Fidel Odinga, but the mystery remains unsolved till this day. Eventually, Quincy was released, but the fairy tale was cracking. Helen finally realized Quincy was abroad with potential ties to the dark arts and kicked him out of the Runda house.
Listen to what people say and accept what is true and reject what isn't. Because as it is now, she isn't listening at all.
Esther, the ever ride or die, followed Quincy to a tiny rental, but the harassment, headlines, and chaos forced them to flee to Australia, where they got asylum. New beginnings, right? Well, no. They then got a son named Sinclair, and for a while things were quite quiet until 2 years later, when Quincy, convinced the boy was possessed, tried to perform a DIY exorcism by smashing the child into a wall and stomping on his stomach. You'd guess that the baby died. Witnesses confirmed Quincy had been hurting him for a while. As horrifying as it sounds, Esther lied to protect him, even after her son's death, which brings us to the question everyone is asking. Was Esther under a spell? Did Quincy just charm her into madness, or did she just fall hard for a con with the charisma of a cult leader and the logic of a rock? Literally. Quincy was then sentenced to 11 years, parole eligible after 9, and Esther, for obstruction and lying, got 10 months. But the ghost of that story still haunts Kenya, not just because of the crime or the church or the placenta party, but because no one to this day can fully explain what the hell happened to Esther Arunga.